The next specific tool that I want to discuss, I actually want to take a few moments on because it's such a useful tool, especially when considering workflow, that you'll want to both configure it and understand how to use it correctly. To clear the palette a little bit, I'm going to go to page 2 by clicking on the scroll bar. And the tool that I want to discuss is the stamp tool. Now, at its heart, the stamp tool is really just a sticky note tool with a custom face. The faces that you can use are either faces that are built in, and to see those, I'll click on the Stamp Tool button, and you can see that Acrobat provides several for me. So I'll choose Standard Business, Approved, and then I can click and drag. To see the text panel, all I need to do is double-click and move this over to the side. And there we go. Now, I can indicate why I've approved it, or if I've chosen not approved or whatever, I can indicate some information in there. And that's useful. The stamps that Adobe provides are useful to a degree, but you'll want to take this a next step, and that next step involves either using a dynamic stamp or customizing the stamp. Let's talk briefly about the dynamic stamp, because if I close this up and delete this, the dynamic stamp can indicate more than just a standard business stamp. So I'll select it by clicking here, choosing Dynamic, and I'm going to choose Reviewed. And when I click and drag, not only does it say reviewed, but it indicates by whom. And it picked this information up from my identity information that I used to log on to the computer with. And it also picked up time and date information from the time settings in the computer itself. So it's just a very quick, convenient way to let someone know when you review the document. You don't actually have to write that into a particular note. It's automatically built in there for you. Dynamic stamps are useful, but they're not as useful as a custom stamp. And again, when I create these workflows, either for myself or for others, I like to define specific tools for specific uses. The customized stamp allows me to take that process sort of all the way. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I'm going to come back to my stamp tool, and I'm going to choose Create Custom Stamp. What I want to do is create a customized face of my own choosing for one of these stamps. So I'll select Create Custom Stamp. You can see that this is what I was browsing to the last time I went to create one of these customized stamps. I've provided you a file that we're going to use to create a custom stamp here. I'll select Browse. And if you look in the Lesson 10 folder of the Part 1 folder of the project files you installed onto your hard drive, you'll see there's a file called Logo. It's a PDF file that I created using Adobe Illustrator, although you can use anything as long as you can convert it into a PDF file as a face for your stamp. I've gone ahead, I've created it, converted it to PDF. I'll choose it by clicking Select, and it will now become the face of my stamp. To finish the process, I'll click OK, and it's important when you're creating these things to use categories and names. The category I'm going to choose is going to be Business Specific. That means for this particular business, I've created some custom stamps that I want to use. The name that I'm going to use will indicate what particular stamp of the business-specific stamps I'm using. So I'll hit the Tab key, type in generic logo. I'll click OK, and now when I return to the Stamp tool, I have a new category, business-specific, and a new stamp, generic logo. And you can see that the stamp is quite large, but that's not a problem because I can simply click and drag to produce a smaller version of that stamp somewhere on the page. And then if I like, I can double-click. The stamp opens its own text palette, which I can type some information into, much as I've been able to do with any of the comment tools. Now, the reason for creating categories is because I might create several different stamps based on this concept and then store them under the business-specific category. For example, instead of a generic logo, maybe I'll have a logo that indicates a page change, or maybe I'll have a logo that indicates something else about the project that is unrelated to content changes. I can create them, then I can train the people in my workflow group to use them correctly in the workflow. Again, it allows me very quickly to determine what changes are necessary by simply opening the file and examining what comments have been placed on the file.